indivisible,
with liberty and justice
for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Matthey.
Here.
Trustee Boland.
Here.
Trustee Milawambwe.
Here.
Trustee Emig.
Here.
Trustee Painter.
Here.
Trustee Carrillo. Trustee Ward.
Here.
Trustee Crable.
Here.
Trustee Bray.
Here.
Trustee Renner.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you
Thanks.
very much. At this point, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, we have minutes and approval of expenditures. Are there any items that any member of the Board of Trustees would like to have removed for separate consideration? Or if not, is there a motion to approve? Trustee Ward.
I think the minutes need to be removed because I probably have to abstain since I wasn't.
Well, I mean, you obviously, Trustee Ward, you can do whatever you like, but it would not be automatically assumed unless you found something that you were concerned about that you had to remove yourself. But that's, if you'd like, if you feel more comfortable, we can do it however you want.
No, that's fine. Let's not take up time with it. I just thought, as long as it's understood that I wasn't at that meeting, that's fine.
I think we know that. And given your comments, we appreciate your honesty. That's meritorious of a member of the clergy, by the way. At this point, is there a motion to approve? Trustee Boland and Trustee Painter. I see fingers in the air, and they're not a single digit, so I'm assuming they're not mad at me. So at this point, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Trustee Matthey.
Yes.
Trustee Boland.
Yes.
Trustee Milawambwe.
Yes.
Trustee Emig.
Yes.
Trustee Painter.
Yes.
Trustee Ward.
Aye.
Trustee Crable.
Yes.
Trustee Bray.
Yes.
Trustee Renner.
Yes, thank you very much. We move to the public notice of 2021 meetings for the City of Bloomington Township and Evergreen Memorial Cemetery. And the recommendation is that we have the list of annual meetings to be approved. Is there a motion to that effect? Moved by single finger, not the middle one, by Councilmember Boland, second by Trustee Boland, second by Trustee Painter. I've got to get my act together. I apologize. Any further discussion on this?
Mayor, just wanted to point out to everybody watching that next year we're switching the meeting time to 5:30.
Yes. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, appreciate that, Trustee Matthey. Thank you.
I would also like to make a comment. This is Deb.
Deb, go ahead.
If you note on the public meeting for 2021 for the township, on December, the very last, we put December 13th or 20th because we don't know yet what the city's planning on doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that as well, for the record. At this point, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Matthey.
Yes.
Trustee Boland.
Yes.
Trustee Milawambwe.
Yes.
Trustee Emig.
Yes.
Trustee Painter.
Yes.
Trustee Ward.
Aye.
Trustee Crable.
Yes.
Trustee Bray.
Yes.
Trustee Renner.
Yes, thank you very much. Move on to item 6, the 2020 tax levy ordinance for tax year 2021 to be used in fiscal 2022. And the recommendation is that the tax levy be approved and that the ordinance be passed. Is there a motion to begin our discussion? Okay, moved by Trustee Boland. Once again, I'm very appreciative of single digits that do not involve the middle finger. And Trustee Crable, second. Any discussion on this? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
I'll just say yes.
Sorry, I was on mute. Trustee Matthey.
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Boland.
Yes.
Trustee Milawambwe.
Yes.
Trustee Emig.
Yes.
Trustee Painter.
Yes.
Trustee Ward.
Aye.
Trustee Crable,
Yes.
Trustee Bray,
Yes.
Trustee Renner.
Yes, thank you so much. At this point, we're going to turn it over to our comments by our elected officials at the township. And we'll start with our township supervisor, Deb Skillroot, and then our township assessor, Steve Scudder. Ms. Skillroot.
Okay, township COVID update. Our numbers are still fairly low. We do have a moratorium in place for Ameren. We are seeing some cases of eviction notices, or at least extremely high fees, because clients are unable to pay due to no job. And so they're tacking on a lot of fees. We're sending all of those individuals that we're seeing that to Prairie State Legal for their advice, because I'm sure that they can work something out from a legal perspective to fight that uphill battle. And I foresee that that's going to occur more and more as the months go on. The other thing that I want to mention is I would like to extend the community emergency response deadline, which was set for December 31st. And I'm postponing that to March 31st, which is the end of our fiscal year. And then we'll reevaluate for the new year.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Skillroot? Is that it?
No. Thank
Okay.
you. Oh, yes, I do have one more thing. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Mid-Central Community Action has been out of money for the past month. I'm not sure if I responded to this last month, but most of the cases are now going to the city for help. And that's the next step to using federal funds. And then once that is exhausted, there will be emergency solution funds from PATH, which which Home Sweet Home Ministries will operate and administrate, And then we'll still have our funds available for the CERP program, which is the Community Emergency Response Program. Okay.
Thank you very much. At this point, Mr. Scudder, any comments?
You see my report. The graph just states the number of appeals we've had over the past few years, and the number of appeals was down this year. The assumption in the early part of the year would be high, but it looks like everything in this year is different. So they trended downward.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Scudder? Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Boland?
I have a question for Ms. Skillroot. She mentioned
Trustee Boland. Yeah, go
we
ahead.
have to go back.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, could you explain what those fees are that are being charged to the renters?
Deb, are you still there?
Deb, if you're speaking, you're
Yeah.
on mute.
All right. Sorry. I actually was off mute and then was on mute and then, forget it. Okay. Trustee Boland.
Yeah.
The fees are directly associated to them not making their late payments. And they're saying that it's $5 a day for every day that they're not being, they're not paying their monthly rent. And specifically, one case that I'm familiar with is that the landlord is charging that much, but it's not even in the lease to be charging that. So we've got some issues that we are dealing with. And for the client, we normally, if something is a high fee that they owe, if we receive a stay of eviction from the rent or from the vendor, the landlord, then we are able to pay it. But with that large sum, it's not appropriate to do that until Prairie State Legal gets involved with it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, thank you very much. At this point, are there any public comments related to the township that have nothing to do with what's on the agenda?
Um, yes, Mayor, or sorry, Trustee Renner, we do have one person, Anthony Overton has registered for public comment. He is present in the meeting, and then we have Janae Clark, who is not present. So 1 second.
We'll start with the first, and this does have to be, well, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. Is he online?
He is. Anthony, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Here.
Okay, Anthony, go ahead.
Yes, I couldn't actually find a copy of the agenda, so I was unable to actually say whether or not, I'm sorry, I wasn't able to say whether or not exactly what my issue was, but my current issue had to do with the actual current rising rates of infection of COVID and the overall situation that seems to be happening, as currently many children, including my son, have been asked to go back to school and return to in-person schooling. But we are currently 8 months into a pandemic where the infection rates are even higher than they were before, which means we're at a higher risk than we were before when we originally decided it was too high of a risk and shut down in March. So I'm unsure where the city stands with attempting to combat this level of an issue that seems to only be growing out of control.
Okay. Look, thank you very much. Just to clarify, this is the township meeting, which is a different governmental body than the city. But if you wanted to contact any of us, feel free to do so, or the clerk's office. Thank you. At this point, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Trustee Boland, second by Trustee Milawambwe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We are adjourned, and we're going to meet in about a minute and a half. See you in just a minute.
Thank you.
Boca, à tout à l'heure, jusqu'au moment.
OK, à tout à l'heure, en quelques minutes.
Dans quelques minutes, oui. Okay. Madam Clerk, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to call the meeting of the regular Bloomington City Council to order. And I'm going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Mappy,
Here.
Councilmember Bolin,
Here.
Councilmember Milawambwe,
Here.
Councilmember Emig,
Here.
Councilmember Painter,
Here.
Councilmember Carrillo, Councilmember Ward,
Here.
Councilmember Crable,
Here.
Councilmember Bray,
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here, thank you very much.
I'm also here.
Oh,
Oh,
are you-
did I?
I
Did I
just can't get my camera working right
Oh,
now.
there she is. Okay. Hi.
Okay. All right. At this point, we're going to go ahead and move to our distinguished city manager, Tim Gleason. What updates do you have at this point? I'm going to turn it over to you, Tim.
Just a couple, Mayor. Thank you and council. 3 COVID-related updates. Wanted to share that the CDBG round 2 of money that we received to the tune of $546,000. That will come back to council on December 7th in the form of a public hearing. And then council will have that as an agenda item to vote on December 14th. And what we've done, and we've talked about this, but we've increased the actual amount for business grants from 4,500 to 5,000. And individual assistance is built into there as well. And as we heard in the township meeting previously, we are being contacted as the first point of contact as some of the funds have been exhausted at the different levels of the community. Number 2, this past weekend, Bloomington Police Department has continued doing enforcement for noncompliance for several months. But unlike what we saw 2 weekends ago, this past weekend was relatively quiet. We had 5 calls that Bloomington Police Department responded to, none of which were downtown. Only one of those, there was a non-compliance report that was completed and forwarded to the health department. And then lastly, a community FYI, the emergency order that's held at my level, I've extended the outdoor dining hours to December 31st. And then also have capped the closure to follow the governor's mitigation rules to 11 p.m. Could go on a little bit longer, Mayor, but that'll do it for now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gleason. We appreciate all that you do, and obviously being on the front lines to handle all this. This can't be an easy job, and I know it. Thank you, Tim. We very much appreciate all that you do. At this point, we move on to recognitions and appointments, and we have a proclamation recognizing November 28th, 2020 as Small Business Saturday, as requested by the administration. And I just want to read this proclamation. Do we have someone, Mr. Gleason or Madam Clerk, do we know if someone is here to accept? Oh,
Yeah, Melissa Hahn. Thanks. Sorry to interrupt. She's going to accept on behalf.
Here. Sorry about that. I thought, I'm sorry that I thought Member Bolin was like hiding her face because she was ashamed because I didn't remember. But thank you, Donna. At this point, in recognition of Small Business Saturday, November 28th, 2020, that's this coming Saturday. And as usual, there are a whole bunch of whereases. So let me start with the first whereas. Whereas the city of Bloomington, Illinois celebrates our local businesses and the contributions that they make to our local economy and community. Whereas small businesses are a vital component to the city of Bloomington's economy by creating quality jobs for our residents, engaging in philanthropic and civil concerns, helping preserve neighborhoods and key business corridors, and improving the quality of life of our citizens. Whereas support of local businesses is critical to maintaining a robust and socially, environmentally, and financially sustainable community. And whereas the city of Bloomington values local businesses and celebrates the diversity of goods and services that they provide and the contributions that they make to our community. And whereas a significant amount of commerce in Bloomington and across the United States is conducted around the Thanksgiving holiday, during which Small Business Saturday occurs. Point taken. And whereas residents of Bloomington are being asked to support local businesses on Small Business Saturday, November 28th, and throughout the year as a way to boost the local economy and strengthen Bloomington's small business community. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Terry Renner, Mayor of the City of Bloomington, do hereby proclaim November 28th, 2020 as Small Business Saturday in the city of Bloomington and commend its observance to all citizens. Thank you very much. At this point, Madam Clerk, we are shifting to public comment. I know we've had some via email. You want to read those, and anyone else who's online prepared to comment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we had 4 individuals send email public comment. That was Sarah Greenberg, Seth McIntyre, Creighton Boudris, and China Miller. And we have, I believe, 6 that are online and ready to speak.
Okay, Madam Clerk,
The
go ahead.
first one we'll start with is Alan Axelrod.
Up to 3 minutes, but no more. Madam Clerk.
Alan, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Alan, go ahead.
All right. So on November 10th, an activist group called Central Illinois News, a member organization of No Ameren Shutoffs, released a video explaining the dire circumstances and the struggle of our campaign. We are now 49 member organizations strong and counting. On November 11th, a member of one of the No Ameren Shutoffs organizations asked Mayor Terry Renner to stop utility shutoffs, which he responded to as yes. On November 12th, Councilman Jeff Crable submitted an initiative for the Bloomington City Council to begin to address utility shutoffs. On November 16th, you all on the Bloomington City Council voted unanimously to approve the initiative in recognition of utility shutoffs as a pandemic safety issue. Although we've passed resolutions in multiple counties throughout political party bodies, you were the first municipal government to provide an official gesture outside of Champaign County. That makes a difference. Despite all your internal divides, you came together and stood up for your residents. The next day, on November 17th, research from No Ameren Shutoffs was published, and the media began to ask Governor Pritzker about his financial ties to power utilities in the state, including Ameren, Illinois. Wednesday, November 18th, Ameren, Illinois, Commonwealth Edison, and Peoples Gas all ceased disconnections. Ameren even claimed that this was because the temperature was in the 30s, yet the 24-hour forecast, which is the only forecast relevant for the state statute, throughout the state was in the 40s. And Thursday, November 19th, was in the 60s. This was us, all of us, across a wide political spectrum, working in what ways we understood how to keep each other safe during the pandemic. The underbelly of Illinois politics is not so difficult to overpower as some progressives in their sphere have suggested. All it takes is for people who care to act. And for that, I say thank you. Unfortunately, for the state of Illinois, water shutoffs continue by the corporation known as Illinois American Water. Tomorrow, they will meet with State Representative Carol Ammons and a small cluster of other local officials. I hope to bring this chapter to a close. The last thing that Bloomington City Council can do is to advocate for the McLean County Board or the Public Health District to use their Emergency Services and Disaster Agency Act power to restore public utility service as enumerated in the Illinois Emergency Services and Disaster Act. If they do not, the only other thing that you can do as a body is to adopt the Emergency Services and Disaster Act, which Springfield has, which Jacksonville has, which Peoria has, which Champaign has, and which Urbana has. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Alan. We normally don't have a response. I just want to clarify for the record that I did talk to the mayor of Urbana a few days ago about this very matter and other things. And people from the Illinois Municipal League, it is, while we can propose resolutions, we do not, and it's possible that actually the governor may not have the authority to suspend utility shutoffs, as unfortunate as that is. Just FYI. Madam Clerk, next, please.
Next up, we have Tessa Summers. Tessa, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Leslie.
Tessa, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Renner and members of the council. I'm here tonight to address you briefly in support of the proposed Welcoming Cities ordinance. So I'm originally from Bloomington Normal, but I moved away and back several times over the course of my life so far, and I just recently moved back here, what I think is for good, from Texas. And so although this ordinance has been under consideration for quite some time, I think there's no time like the present to be clear about my support for it. So I read the ordinance with my lawyer hat, and I don't see a credible argument against it. I also read it with my non-lawyer personal hat, and I found it equally convincing. So, of course, most of us are immigrants if we trace our lineage back far enough, but also this ordinance means something personal to me for two additional reasons. I married into a family that is more recently emigrated than my own and is identifiable by skin color. So to be frank, my in-laws have dealt with a lot of fear and threats over the last several years. And I also spent several days in 2018 offering pro bono legal services to asylum seekers in Texas. And so while we aren't necessarily talking about asylees, I think the experience is apropos here. So I want to share a little bit of that with you all. I was at the Hutto Detention Center for Women, just outside Austin, Texas. And these women were, to a person, completely traumatized by the experiences in their home countries, the things that they were running from. And I heard stories of absolutely gut-wrenching loss and abuse, and it's hard to reflect on that, let alone try to describe that, that level of horror that they experienced in their lives. And these are, of course, our brothers and sisters, and they're also our neighbors here in Bloomington Normal. And I think now is the time that we must be unequivocal in our support for our local immigrant community, especially in this season of gratitude and giving, and a season that celebrates the birth of an immigrant infant. And I think now is the time to demonstrate our character as a community by passing the Welcoming Cities ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, Madam Clerk.
Next up, we have Catherine Hoy. Catherine, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Catherine, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Katie Hoy. I'm a lifelong resident of Bloomington, and I have some comments in response to Councilmember Boland's Welcoming America pitch. Donna uses the term fear-mongering, but this term implies manipulation by exaggerating a circumstance. Donna's accusation that advocates of the Welcoming Cities ordinance have been using fear-mongering techniques is evidence that she enjoys a privilege that the immigrants in our community do not. For those community members, it is a reality, not an exaggeration, that their livelihood is threatened by local law enforcement maintaining a relationship with ICE. I don't understand how Donna expects the cooperation of immigrants in our community without an ordinance protecting them from potential for harm. It is insulting to our immigrant neighbors for Donna to imply we do not need this protection. She clearly has not collected her data and research for her proposal from the people this issue affects most closely. A quick Google search provided me an article from the Vedette from February of 2019, which references research done by Illinois People's Action before they helped bring the first proposal that the council adopt a Welcoming Cities ordinance. Executive Director of IPA, Don Carlson, is quoted as saying, "As much as the Bloomington police said it wasn't an issue, it was an issue." Through emails obtained by the Freedom of Information Act, IPA found several conversations between the Bloomington Police Department and ICE dating back to 2015, to include particular instances where BPD sent ICE information on citizens that had not committed a crime. I doubt the community members involved in these events would support Donna's admittance of a protective ordinance. I also have questions for Councilmember Bray about her opinion of the Welcoming America initiative. I want to know how an immigrant who is new to our community can benefit from anything a Welcoming America platform has to offer if they are in fear of the violence perpetrated by ICE. The Welcoming America proposal sounds nice, and that's all. It is a facade for real sanctuary, and it is a poor replacement for what your community members are asking for. I would like to cite that request by your community members as quoted in that Vidette article again, where the public information officer, John Furman, is quoted as saying, the issue drew local attention and Bloomington residents came in large numbers to city council meetings to support the ordinance. Councilmember Bray, I'm curious why you can acknowledge that ICE has committed egregious activities, but you do not support cutting ties with them. It is suspicious to me that you would talk about them being bad guys, but not use your power to stop them from hurting your community members. I suspect ulterior motives. What are they? It is insulting to immigrants in our community and to me that you claim your body does not have authority to pass this ordinance when you clearly do. Why are you on the Bloomington City Council if you're going to say, let the feds handle it about an issue you absolutely have leverage over? And finally, I reference again the Vidette quote in reference to Councilmember Matthew saying he has not heard from our community.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Catherine. Next, Madam Clerk.
Thanks. Next up is Trevin Gaffney. Trevin, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. My name is Traven Gaffney. I am here also to speak in support of a Welcoming City ordinance and talk about the Welcoming America ordinance, or Welcoming America initiative. Ms. Alvarez last week told you how people throughout the state have already come together to determine the best way to help immigrants in communities where they feel like they are not being properly supported. People from this community were in attendance at those meetings. Prior council was not in attendance. If this council wishes to uphold this notion that our community cares about the immigrants in its community, then we need to listen to them when they speak. It would be more offensive to act like we want to help immigrant communities than to do nothing for them. So if we plan to put words and niceties into action, then we have to do something more than passing a Welcoming America initiative. We have to stop ICE from being able to communicate with Bloomington Police Department officers. I've stated once before, I will say it again, it is an egregious waste of municipal funds to spend any of them on a well-funded organization. ICE is a well-funded organization. It makes no sense that we would in any way need to help them more than that last administration and many special interest groups are already helping them. There's nothing in our city that represents this idea that we should keep ourselves safe and not consider those that have come into this community seeking refuge, seeking assistance, seeking asylum, whatever their situation is. I very much implore every member of this council to think about the privilege upon which they get to sit on this council, make decisions, and go through their daily lives safely. Some people in our community are saying that they do not share those same privileges. It is your duty to hear those cries and to try to do something for those people. I thank you for my time, and I wish you all a happy holiday.
Thank you very much. Next, Madam Clerk.
Next up, we have Ashley Farmer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Ashley, go ahead.
Hi, so I would also like to speak in support of the Welcoming Cities ordinance that has been discussed. I've, of course, heard a lot of people's opinions on this particular issue, but I want to talk first about evidence. Specifically, there have been many peer-reviewed studies looking at the effects of having a Welcoming Cities ordinance in cities across the United States, just like this one, especially in regards to crime and the economy. One of the factors to be considered in having a Welcoming Cities ordinance is that it helps promote cooperation with our local law enforcement agencies among the people who live here. And residents, especially immigrants, are going to be more likely to report crimes to the police, to come forward as witnesses with the police, to even report their own victimization to the police. And this in turn fosters more trust between the community and our local police agencies, and more broadly makes us safer as a community. I do research on police and police community relationships myself, so I think this is incredibly important. Studies on crime rates in cities with these ordinances have found either a null effect, so crime rates really have not changed at all, or an effect where some crime rates actually decreased, specifically for property crimes. Evidence also shows that diversity helps the economy. The counties across the United States that have the strongest economic outputs are also the most diverse. And all of these things point to broader positive effects of having a welcoming cities ordinance in Bloomington. Speaking to immigration issues more broadly, aggressive immigration enforcement with ICE has had dire consequences for families, for local economies, and for communities more broadly who have had to see members of their community dragged away, locked up, and or deported, some who have lived there for decades. And we have also learned that there's little to be gained by enacting harsh and exclusionary policies aimed at immigrants and immigration. I know people also have a lot of opinions about the necessity of such an ordinance here, but having a welcoming cities ordinance in place does more than just provide a solution when it comes to cooperation with ICE on undocumented immigration. It shows that we value this entire community and every single person who lives here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, that's the last of our public comment for this evening. I did have a list of 3 people who had registered but are not present in the meeting. That's Crystal Abel, China Miller, and John Reed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going next to our consent agenda under item number 8. Are there any items that any member of the City Council would like to have removed from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Councilmember Carrillo.
Yeah, I'd like to remove F, please.
F as in Frank. Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of item F as in Frank?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Emig, second by Councilmember, who did I see first? Cradle, sorry. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll? Again, this is except for, item F.
Councilmember Matthew?
Yes.
Councilmember Boland?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller-Wambwe?
Yes.
Councilmember Emig?
Yes.
Councilmember Painter?
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Cradle?
Yes.
Councilmember Bray?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Motion carried. No nays to announce. Madam Clerk, we're going to move to item F, 8F, and I'm going to turn to Councilmember Carrillo. You had pulled this. Jen?
Yes, I think that we could benefit from a little bit more time working on this based on some letters that were received since the last time that we discussed this. So I want to make a motion that we table this until the December 14th meeting.
Okay. Is that a second, Councilmember Ward? Okay. I did have Councilmember Matthew who had his hand up before I call the roll on this or debate. Jamie?
So I live in the affected property, so I was going to say I need to recuse myself from this, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments about the motion to defray this till the next meeting? Oh, excuse me, Councilmember Emig.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I too have received a lot of communication about this initiative, and I want to just reiterate that a lot of constituents really like that we're moving towards this zoning provision, but have some concerns about the permitted versus special use. And I think there's just an opportunity to come to some agreement about which way to go forward.
Okay.
So I am supporting this tabling.
Sorry. Thank you. Councilmember Emig, I apologize. No one else? Madam Clerk, then would you call the roll for the motion made by Councilmember Carrillo to postpone this?
Yes. Councilmember Boland?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller-Wambwe?
Yes.
Councilmember Emig?
Yes.
Councilmember Painter?
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
Aye.
Councilmember Crable?
Yes.
Councilmember Bray?
Yes.
Motion carried, no nays to announce, Madam Clerk, and we did note, Councilmember Matthew, that you had abstained. We move next to the regular agenda, and this is under item 9A, consideration and action on a resolution awarding the request for proposal, and I'm going to read that, 2021-17 for the fiscal year 2020 tax exempt capital equipment lease to Clayton Holdings. I'm going to turn this over to our city manager because we have about a 5-minute presentation by our city manager and Scott Rathman, and then about a 5-minute council discussion. And I'm going to turn it, Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Scott Rathbun, Finance Director, is going to have a quick presentation, but one thing that I'll note, this is business that we do every single year. And but one thing that we've done the last couple of years is we're trying to transition out of leasing as much as we had in the past. And that's something of note. I think Scott's going to comment to that, but it's a position that we're trying to put ourselves in financially and think that it's the better approach. And councils in the past, the past couple of years have felt the same way. Scott?
Thank you, Tim. I really don't have a presentation this evening. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. This is a recurring agenda item each fall that we do. We've been doing since roughly 2012. I'll have to look at the memo. I've forgotten the exact date, where we've been utilizing a capital lease to fund our rolling equipment stock. In 2020, we strategically allocated about $500,000 of cash purchases to begin that process of weaning ourselves off of financing for this purpose. 2021 was $649,000. Of course, COVID is going to impact that mission. We've set aside many equipment purchases for the year, kind of taking a wait and see on that process. But we're hopeful that we can still have cash purchases and continue this the progress towards weaning ourselves off this lease. The rates this year have been very favorable, 0.85%, so under 1% for the 5-year lease and 1.25% for the 10-year. So while we are strategically moving away from financing, at least the interest rates have been going our direction and making it almost a neutral position doing this from year to year. One thing I wanted to make 2 additional comments. We do this retroactively. We go for the financing the year after we made the purchases so that we know the exact amount that we want to borrow on the capital lease. In the past, there's been times where we've set up the lease ahead of time and we've basically over borrowed and had to fund that or pay that debt service back on dollars that we did not need. And then along with that process, we know we're going to do that. So we make assumptions when we're going into the next budget year, and we build the debt service into the budget year for the funding. So with this year, I don't have the exact rates in front of us, but I know they were much higher than 0.85% and 1.25% that we utilize for the FY21 budget for these purchases made in 20. So we should realize some savings in the 21 budget related to that. That's it, and I'll take any questions now if you have any.
Questions of Mr. Questions of Mr. Rathman. Oh, Councilmember Matthew.
Thanks, Mayor. Scott, thank you for that. And since I've been the one who's been the most vocal about getting rid of these leases over the years, I just wanted to ask on this chart that's in the packet, there were rates for 5-year and 10-year. What were you looking at you wanted to do this year? Were you looking at the 10-year or, I mean, I guess I didn't quite understand what we were saying in the packet.
Okay. We split the purchases basically, and they're based on useful life. So most of our purchases fall under the 5-year useful life category. So of the $4.3 million, roughly, we have $3 million allocated to the 5-year. There's an equipment list or schedule as part of the memo in the packet. And so the only component on the 10-year is the police portable mobile and car radios. Those were assumed to have an approximate 10-year life. So they're being put on a 10-year finance schedule. And that was almost 275 million of the 4.3 million.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your efforts and Tim's efforts to get rid of this idea of leasing. I like paying for things as we go along. Well, I like that in my personal life as well. I don't like paying banks money for needless reasons. So if we can, the sooner we can get back to just paying cash for everything as we go along, I think we'll be in a better and more stable position, for the entire city. So thank you for all your work to start heading us down that path. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthew. At this point then, is there a motion to approve the proposed resolution? Motion made by Councilmember Boland, second by Councilmember Bray, actually literally second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Mackey,
Yes.
Councilmember Boland,
Yes.
Councilmember Miller-Wambwe,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Correa,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Motion carried. No nays to announce. Madam Clerk, would go to the next item, and that is item 9B, as in boy, consideration and action on a resolution authorizing waiving the technical bidding requirements and approving an agreement with Invoice Cloud and Company. And we have a presentation that by our city manager and Scott Rathman again, and about a 15-minute council discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Scott and Craig Macbeth, IS Director, are going to present. And this is going to be about a 15-minute presentation with 15 minutes comments from Council. But I know I sent some prep material to Council and City Manager update, but this is an exciting project, and it's one that we want to talk through. We do need resolution approved by Council if that's your desire, but want to share what's coming next, more so with community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. Scott, you or Craig going first?
That's going to be me.
All right, Scott.
It's not numbers driven. It's not exactly my wheelhouse, but I'm going to give it a shot. Phil, can you bring up the presentation, please? Okay, thank you. As Tim said, we're excited to present it's a bill and payment interface platform this evening. Finance and IT and Public Works have been looking for years for a solution to address a lot of the manual workflows and inefficiencies we have, primarily in utility billing. This is something we want to apply citywide, citywide applications, but I'm going to be speaking primarily to its applications towards utility billing this evening. It's a platform that's going to provide convenience and modernization to the way residents receive and pay their utility bills and other bills, as we will discuss later. And like I said, it's going to streamline workflows and improve cash flows for the city as well. So before we launch into that, though, I wanted to make one comment first that if this is approved, the utilization of this system by our residents will be strictly voluntary. So no one's going to be forced to go paperless or to pay via credit card or some other electronic transaction method. So I wanted to make that perfectly clear before we start. So next slide, please. Thank you. Invoice Cloud, it started in 2009. They have about 2,100 clients, and in 2019, they processed over $13 billion in e-transactions. You can see in that first line, it says Invoice Cloud provides a complete, secure electronic bill presentment and payment solution. Well, what that means, it's a digital platform. It sits kind of on top of our financial accounting system. Tyler Munis, which we're going through a major conversion, a utility billing conversion now. So this Invoice Cloud would be populated by our billing system. So it would include all the billing data for all the residents of the city, whether it was utilized or not. And then kind of jumping down to the bottom and some of the features, saving time and costs. It's really designed to promote self-service and promote paperless receipt of bills. And so there's a lot of efficiencies to be and cost savings to be made for the city in that regard. And it also provides to the consumer pay whenever, wherever ability that we don't currently have. Pay by text, pay by web, set up schedules for payments, multiple payments within 1 month in case you want to spread your payment over a couple of different paychecks. For the city, it's engaging the community in more direct communications because it has a very intuitive AI sort of communication with alerts, notices. Residents can set up specific alerts they'd like to receive about payments, and it helps people actually not miss a payment. But before we kind of jump into some of the screens and details, I kind of wanted to review some of the behind the scenes need that was kind of pushing us to do those reviews over the last few years. So next slide, please. As I mentioned previously, we're looking at this from a citywide application standpoint with the customer service hub, all the different touch points residents have with the city. But from a utility billing standpoint, you can see some of the complexity and volume that we're currently dealing with. We produce over 32,000 bills per month. That's 384,000 bills per year. Of that 32,000, 28,000 are being physically mailed. So they're being printed and mailed, and a good portion of those are being, checks are being read and sent in. Our staff takes over 4,000 calls per month, and our payment processing, this is kind of the typical spread of payments, but a lot of these processes are with different banks, and we have to upload that information into the system and post it to our utility account. So credit cards, bank debits, walk-ins, the lockbox that checks mailed in. So there's no centralized platform to capture these payments and automatically apply them to accounts. Solution needed. I've kind of covered this, address these manual workflows, provide efficiency to the community, sort of modernize that experience that consumers nowadays are looking for. And where are we? Why is this coming up now? Well, we're 18 months into a utility billing conversion. It's a major conversion from our legacy system to our main ERP system, Tyler Munis. And Tyler's billing functionality is robust. We're looking forward to utilizing that from the legacy system, but it just can't provide that desired consumer interface that we're looking for. And so our recommendation is to move forward with deploying this invoice cloud solution in conjunction with that conversion, which is scheduled for March, so that we'll kind of roll this all out at the same time. And we won't be layering in a conversion of our system and then bringing on this platform at a later time where citizens might have to set up accounts twice. Next slide, please. And Craig, jump in. I may ramble on here. So Invoice Cloud seemed to check all the boxes for us. And, customer engagement, electronic bill presentment, that's a fancy title for a system, but it actually captures it fairly well too. Extensive customer portal for residents to be able to view 24 months of billing and payment history. They can store their bank account in their secure method. I'm going to jump down. It can accept payments in any manner, web, mobile, IVR, interactive voice response, pay by text, over the counter, kiosk, which we're planning on utilizing in our customer service hub. One-time pay. I had to kind of check into this, see how this works, but the one-time pay, the system will be automatically populated with billing information. So if someone wants to do a one-time pay, they don't have to go in and set up an account. The system will prompt them for a couple of key pieces of information like their account, and maybe their address, their street address, and then walk them through a payment. And so it's very intuitive for the residents. It's very easy to use, and it also kind of helps everyone keep on track. And it's a constant way of reminding residents that their bills are coming due. They can sign up for paperless. They can pay by all these different methods. And so it has a tremendous amount of flexibility for what we're looking for. Next slide, please. This is just kind of a visual representation of some of the things that I've already mentioned. Starting in the upper right-hand corner, the intelligent communications. email notifications. Everyone will receive an email notification when their bill is coming due if they haven't paid it. So you won't get an email if you've already paid and clog up your inbox. You can sign up for text messaging. You can set this up on a calendar via the system, and it will automatically populate whatever type of calendar method that you use. You can see on the bottom all the different methods for paying: online, mobile, IVR. I wanted to comment on IVR. This is multiple languages are available here too, for residents that don't speak English well. And then there's an outbound component to IVR that isn't functional yet, but it should be functional by the end of the year, whereby we can utilize this to call residents where there might be a water main break. So very interactive tool for both the city and the resident standpoint. Local retail cash. This is where someone can pay their utility bill at a retail location such as Walmart. So you take it in your stub, you throw it in with your everything, your purchases, it gets scanned, you pay for it all at once, and the city gets the payment, and it's automatically applied to your account without any intervention by staff. And then the CSR, customer service representative assist, that's interactive for our city staff. So if someone calls in and they can ask them, hey, are you calling with a cell phone? Can I send you a text? And they can pop them an immediate text. The person can click on the text and make a payment very easily and simply with that method. So there's benefits for both the residents and the city in this very, very flexible system. Next slide, please. The next slides are just going to be some screenshots of how the system looks and some of the, the intuitive use of them. It's not difficult to figure out. It prompts you through the menus. So here's a screen where you can select how you want to be notified, via Outlook, text reminder, and other different methods. And then it has an example of an email that you would receive notifying you, hey, your utility bill's due. If you want to make a payment on that, just click the link below and it'll take you right in there. And then the bottom one is similar, but via text. Next screen, please. This is another example of how simple the system is to navigate and make your selections. So this window on the left here is what I was referring to earlier, the kind of constant reminders of, hey, would you like to sign up for auto pay? Would you like to sign up for paperless? Paperless it's a benefit on so many levels, costs for the city, the environment, et cetera. So the system is really focused on driving people to kind of accept this e-format, but you don't have to. E-adoption is the term that they use. That's how they sell their model. They're big on e-adoption of receiving your bills, communications, and paying your bills. Next slide, please. This is what I was referring to earlier, the customer service rep. Our customer service reps can manually put the payment into the system for someone, or they can run through a process and ask them. You'll note at the bottom it says customer service rep can trigger text messages payers on demand. So again, as I mentioned earlier, asking whether or not someone has a cell phone, can I send you a text? They can click on that link, make a payment. It's efficient for everyone. It's efficient for the CSR rep. It's efficient for the person wanting to make the payment. Next slide, please. IVR, simple to use, multiple languages. They can still transfer to an agent and back. So we're not going to restrict someone to having to utilize a non-living staff member in their transaction, but we're providing all these different methods for which you can interact with the city. Next slide, please. This is just an example of some further flexibility that the system has. I thought this was an interesting slide that they presented to us. So if we were to ever decide that we wanted to have a philanthropy, that we wanted to provide a conduit via the utility billing, we could do it this way. This is, would you like to make a donation today? And I think you can pick multiple programs for which they can choose, and it will just add it to their bill. Now, I don't have a screenshot in here, but there's another resource that's going to make it, it's almost like a shopping cart where residents can pay different types of bills that they have with the city that we'll be exploring in great detail, so that we kind of have that single one-stop shop, the hub, the kiosk, they call this, Craig, what is it? Single pane of glass relationship with the city. So you're just really dealing with one functional platform. Next slide, please.
You're right, Scott. That was where I was going to go with that. Is that in fact that single pane of glass? And I didn't want to disrupt your flow on that, but going forward, while we are just focusing on utility billing for this particular use case, there are many other use cases, even with inside of Munis, that we want to implement and integrate with this solution to provide that single pane of glass. That's the term that keeps getting floated out there. So that way citizens can go to one interface or one portal and see all the bills that they have ready to go for the city of Bloomington. While we are going to focus, primarily on the Munis transactions to begin with, there's definitely opportunities to integrate other separate systems as well into this interface.
Thank you, Craig. I need to learn to take a breath once in a while, so allow someone else to speak. This is a shot. I've mentioned most of these already. I used the term earlier. It's not an uncommon term. It checked all the boxes for us. Here's literally, they provided us a run through of a goals and objectives where they showed all the boxes being checked. Integration with Tyler. That we became associated with Invoice Cloud due to our relationship with Automated Merchant Services. We selected them a couple of years ago as kind of a payment solutions provider because of their strong relationship with Munis and the tight integration they have with them. Number 4, improve customer communications. That's an efficiency for both us and the residents. The paperless program in number 6, reducing inbound calls. I mean, this is a staff utilization thing. If we're not taking a lot of calls, we can utilize staff in other regards and other respects. And then the final one down, it's really, if I had stretched in the Invoice Cloud, I'd rewrite this one and say that pay whenever and however you would like. They are very proud that you can do a one-time payment without setting up an account. I mentioned this earlier. Their system is capable. It includes all the information for all bills or for all accounts, and you can not log in. You can make a payment just with a couple of data point confirmations within the system. You don't have to go through the process of registering and doing all that, which some people are reluctant to do. Next slide, please. And this just kind of summarizes and puts down some statistics as to the benefits for the city and some of the efficiencies to be gained. 2 to 3 times as many e-payments, 60% decreases in annual call volume, 7 times more enrollments in paperless billing, 100% higher e-adoption increase in 1 year. But I did write another note here related to the benefits to residents. Aside from all the flexibility and options that they have for payments and communications, they provided a statistic that research indicated 35% of late payments are due to just people forgetting. They just forget to pay. They bury the bill or something like that. So with all the alerts and the artificial intelligence, whatever you want to refer to it, the constant communication that the system is really built to provide, it saves the consumers late fees as well as improving, the city's cash flow. So there's a dual benefit for people to pay on time for both them and the city. Next slide, please. So as we discussed, we're looking at the application citywide, but from the outset, the utility billing is going to be, the very obvious material component to this. The cost structure of the platform is an e-transaction cost structure. As I indicated earlier, we have 32,000 accounts and there's 28,000 bills mailed per month. We have very high costs related to printing and mailing. You can see there's $245,000 related to printing and mailing per year. Check processing, lockbox is around $60,000. So total hard costs is not including inefficient workflows is $305,000. Initial estimates for Invoice Cloud costs for e-transactions from day one not including the conversions to e-payments and paperless, is $105,000, which would be spread between our 4 main enterprise funds: water, storm, sewer, and solid waste. Utilizing information from Invoice Cloud from some of their other customers and confirming those with those customers, I did that. A 2-year estimated conversion savings is around $70,000. So estimated third year cost around $35,000. And at the bottom there, I put in some of the data related to savings. The bulk of the savings really comes in the form of converting residents to paperless. That is a significant cost for the production, the mail, and then the lockbox costs for processing those manual checks. And right now, I'm going to kick it back over to Craig and ask him to talk about the staff utilization as far as IT and PCI compliance and some of the benefits that utilizing a platform such as Invoice Cloud can provide there.
Great, thanks, Scott. So you mentioned Automated Merchant Services. That's the company that does the payment collection and processing. And as Scott mentioned, we did partner with them back in 2018 for all of our Munis transactions, credit card payment transactions. One of the things that we want to get to in the near future is evaluating all of our merchant accounts that we have through various banking institutions and try and get those single homed into the Automated Merchant Services group. Many benefits for that. One of the benefits is, of course, the more transactions we get into that service, the cheaper the overall rate is. We get a better rate. But one of the bigger soft benefits that Scott was talking about was just the sheer number of man hours that are saved for reconciling all these different bank accounts. If we have a singular payment provider that we can run through and have that common reporting interface, we get not only more accurate numbers, but it's much quicker and much more efficient to process those. Scott also mentioned PCI compliance being a big part of this. Anytime that we have a merchant account that processes credit card transactions, the payment card industry, or PCI, requires us to go through a certain certification to make sure that we're meeting certain obligations and requirements. That annual assessment that we have to do for every one of those merchant accounts, it also takes up quite a bit of staff hours and time to get that submitted and do the successful security audits and everything that are necessary for each bank account. If we don't do that, then we're charged extra every month because we're non-compliant. So this, by incorporating all these merchant accounts into one payment provider, will also increase efficiency because we'll have that one provider that we can work through our PCI compliance with as well.
Thanks, Craig. An example of some of the inefficient workflows, I'll just walk through real briefly, running out of time here. But for electronic debits, ACHs, we have a lot of accounts set up where we automatically debit their account. And the process now, and it will be even when we convert to Munis, is we'll have to export that information out of our billing system and then import it into the banking system that we're using, in this case, Busey, and then process the ACH, process the transaction. And then once it settles, we post those payments back into the system. By utilizing a solution such as Invoice Cloud and having the accounts set up on Invoice Cloud for the direct debit, they will process automatically on the dates that the residents select, post to their accounts, and then deposit, in a bank account in a consolidated reconciliation fashion. So that's an example, very specific example of an efficiency. I can't see the presentation. Is anyone else seeing it now? Going to be brought back up just for the final 2 screens. So next screen, please. So just to summarize, our goals: convenience, modernization, efficient operations. That's for the city and the residents. Needs of 32,000 utility accounts and a customer service hub, citywide centralization of all our processes. And the timing: utility billing implementation to go live in March, and hub and other applications as soon as possible. The utility billing component, it's the implementation for this platform will take a couple of months. So it's a now thing, but we're not looking to go live until March of 2021. We could start utilizing it for other applications. It really is as soon as we get the agreements in place. And with that, next slide, we'll take any questions, or you can drop the presentation. Thank you. Thanks, Phil.
You're on mute.
Sorry,
Mayor.
I didn't realize I muted myself. Okay, I'm sorry. Councilmember Matthew, I was wondering, why doesn't Jamie hear me? Jamie, go ahead, and then Councilmember Boland. Thanks.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Scott and Craig. And I think you guys knew that I was going to have a whole list of questions, and I do. So the first thing that I wanted to ask, actually, you answered right at the end there, Scott. So ACH is still going to be a possibility for this system. And actually, it's going to be an easier to use possibility for this system than we had before, because I know ACH is always cheaper than credit card processing.
True. Yes, and via this method too, we'll be taking out a whole component of manual staff processing as well.
Okay. Craig, I was also going to say to you that as somebody who used to be the PCI compliance officer for a whole bunch of small businesses, I feel you at how ugly that certification system is and how much of a headache it is. So I'm glad we're knocking that out. One of the bigger questions I had is how does this, how do you see this working with the My Bloomington app? Because I was on the Invoice Cloud website last night, and it's not an app that I can see. It's simply a mobile responsive website. So how do you envision the My Bloomington app interacting with this in the future, or has that been talked at all yet?
Yep. Thank you, Alderman Matthew. So the My Bloomington app, while it's a very good system, we've used it for probably the last 6-7 years now. It is becoming an aging system. That solution actually is becoming deprecated, and they're coming out with multiple solutions to replace that. So we're not really looking to integrate directly with the My Bloomington app, but we are looking at what that next step needs to be, whether it's with the same company or also looking at the new Tyler Munis upgrade offering some of that same functionality that we may be able to leverage and keep it within inside of that Tyler system and make it much easier to communicate with both AMS and for Invoice Cloud as well.
Okay, yeah, because I know the My Bloomington app had issues communicating with some of the software that various departments use to schedule their workflows inside of the department. So hopefully we get something better than that. I also wanted to throw out that another large reason why people are late on making their water bill payments is because their credit card expired and they didn't realize it. And that's what happened to me last year. And I saw that part of the presentation on their website said, hey, your card's going to expire next month. So they provide reminders to you ahead of time. The last question I have right now is revolving our contract with Lockbox, the company that's been providing the check handling services for us. So that contract, is that a per item they process for us, per check they process, and it's not like a flat fee contract?
No, it's a per item, and that's Commerce Bank does that for us, and it's a per item charge.
Okay, so as more and more people switch to automated payments, that bill does indeed just start dropping.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. That's all I have for right now. I'm sure I'll think of some more to harass you with soon.
Thanks, Alderman Matthew. Councilmember Boland and then Ward.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. This is eco-friendly, cost-effective, cost-efficient. I'm in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. That was quite succinct. Councilmember Ward, thank you.
Thanks for this presentation and explanation. I think it's really a good thing for our city. One quick clarification. Would people still be able to pay their bills the old-fashioned way if they needed to do that because they lacked the technology?
Yes, that a question came up today. I tried to reference that early on in the presentation. Yes, absolutely. That's the lockbox will stay in place. Paper bills can still go out, and checks can be still mailed into the lockbox and processed same as they've always been.
Thank you.
Is that it? Thank you very much. Let's see, is there anybody else? All right. At this point, is there a motion? Councilmember Painter and then Ward. Councilmember Painter. Johnny?
Yes, I move that we accept this as presented.
Is that what you were attempting to second, Councilmember Ward?
It is.
Okay, thank you so much. At this point, I don't see any hands up. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll? Thank you.
Councilmember Mathey,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Millawamble,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to move to item C on our agenda, and that's consideration of potential action regarding ordinance 2020-19, 18, an ordinance declaring a local emergency due to COVID-19 virus. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mr. Gleason. We have about a 5-minute presentation up to that and up to a 5-minute council question answer discussion. Mr. Gleason, go ahead.
Mayor, no modifications are recommended at this time.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Gleason? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mr. Gleason because we've got yet another finance director report. Any other comments? Mr. Gleason, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and the community. This is the monthly finance director's report. Scott's got a brief presentation and then also is going to share some news that we learned today. Good news. Scott.
Thank you, City Manager Gleason. Save that for me. I'm not sure whether I should lead with it or hold off, but I'll go ahead and lead with it. We did receive our local cures, the full allotment, the check today. They sent it via the state sent it via a check, $3.2 million local cures funding related to our submission about a month ago. So great news for the city related to some relief from our revenue issues that I'm about ready to talk about. And Phil, can you bring up the presentation, please? There you go. Next slide, please. Okay, we are 6 months into the year, but as I discussed many times, certain revenue categories lag. You can see a home rule and state over on the right, number of months collected are just at 4 months. So there's a lag in those revenue calculations. I'm going to kind of take this from a different angle this evening a little bit. If you look at the year-to-date dollar variance column, home rule is negative 1.5 under budget, state 408 under budget, income tax is 694 above budget, but a $500,000 plus of that is really related to the push out of the due date from April 15th to July 15th. So it's not really an indicator. I mean, part of it's an indicator because we're over, we thought that was around a $500,000 and we're at 694, and monthly we're coming in over, but that is really not an indicator of the year right now. Local motor fuel tax, that is under due to COVID. Food and beverage, that is under due to COVID. Now, local use tax, 407 over budget, I am going to say that that is due to COVID, partially anyway, because residents or consumers are shopping online. That's our basically our internet sales tax revenues versus going to the brick and mortars. And then obviously the last hotel motel, $400,000 under budget year to date. So taking the categories that I just mentioned, I'm going to exclude income tax and some of the smaller categories. That's a total of about a $2.7 million impact related to COVID year to date. So that kind of puts it in perspective a bit. Fortunately, we had that push out for income tax this year, and income tax is coming in over budget each month. I keep expecting that to drop off, but it's still performing well. State sales tax, if you look out to the right, you can see the last month was 3.94% over budget. So we've had a couple of months in a row where state sales tax has actually been over budget. People are buying cars. Our vehicle use tax is way over budget. We don't get home rule on those, but we do get state sales tax. And there's also groceries drive that. So that one is hanging in there now. Now, related to the most recent changes in the mitigation rules, we're expecting food and beverage, and some of those local taxes to start taking a heavier hit again. You can see food and beverage the last month was 11% under budget. We predicted it to be 17%, so it did better. But with the changes that have occurred, we're thinking that it might trend a little bit more back to what it was in June. In June, it was 32% under budget, which was $126,000 under budget. And the other large impact, video gaming isn't on our list. These are like the top 11 right here. Video gaming taxes are $850,000 annual budget for us. So that's, $75,000 a month. That will go down to zero for a while, depending on how long this lasts. But, we're kind of trending evenly, between some going up and some going down. Local use, income tax are kind of offsetting some of those other ones. In general, we were doing better than our projections, which we will update for the next month until the recent mitigation changes went into effect. Next slide, please. I'm kind of like disappointed I didn't make more of a fanfare out of that 3.2 million. I kind of just said it like, oh, there you go. But we had built it into the projection column last month. You can see the grant COVID relief. I'm going to focus on this projection column a couple more months. We're going to update it next month, but the 3.160, that is the local cures allocation that the city received, and we actually received it today in the form of a check. Right now, if you go all the way down to the bottom, you can see using the numbers we produced from our last projection, we had $260,000 surplus. Well, I mentioned this last month. I want to mention again that this projection still incorporates all the savings that we put into place related to COVID going into the year, all the holdbacks, the equipment holdbacks that I mentioned previously related to the capital lease. So that number, you have to take that in context, depending on which way the mitigations might be trending next month. We might build back in some of those expenditures, but we will be changing that so it doesn't look like there's a surplus, because it's kind of a false indicator of how we're doing, because it has all those savings built in. I will comment on one particular line item, salaries. You can see that in the trend is really just the percent that we've realized of our budget. So we've realized 48% of our budget for salaries, and we're 6 months through the year, 50%. So we're under trend in salaries. And salaries includes a vacancy savings adjustment we put into the budget based on history of 1.75 million this year. So even with that in there, we're trending under budget. And again, this is really due to vacancies in public safety. Some of it's due to the seasonals from parks and well, mostly from parks, but the arena, well, not the arena, this is general fund, excuse me, BCPA, things of that nature, where we shut those down due to COVID. But that line item is under budget again for this year. Next slide, please. Enterprise funds. Revenue trend. This is a line down towards the bottom. So we're 6 months through the year, so our revenue should be at least 50%. You can see that for the main enterprise funds of water, sewer, storm, solid waste, we're either at 50% or above. One thing related to the enterprise funds, we book those revenues on a cash basis during the year. So we do have rising delinquencies related to the moratorium on shutoffs, but they are not having a material impact on the revenues. So I wanted to point that out. And then again, golf is trending ahead of the prior year, 75% versus 63%. So that's a positive indication for the local community and the wherewithal that our residents have as far as getting out and doing things and supporting the city. So in summary, I guess, we're holding on, we're weathering this storm, the general fund, with the local use being over budget, income tax being over budget, other ones turning over budget, and then that puts us in a position to kind of weather this next mitigation phase through. We have the strong reserves. We got the 3.2 million. So we're, knock on wood, we're in a pretty good position to deal with these things, even though we're still being cautious in all regards as far as expenditures go. We're fortunate that we've had, our past financial success related to putting those reserves in place and realizing the local cures grant from the state. So I will take any questions at this point.
Mayor, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, once again. I usually don't mute myself. I apologize. Thank you, Scott. And Mr. Gleason, go ahead.
Am I transitioning to city manager comments?
Yes.
And I see Jamie waving.
Jamie, did you have a question of Scott?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Go ahead. Jamie, go ahead. We're going to backtrack. Scott, you have a question from Alderman Matthey.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. First of all, yay on the 3.2 million. So there's your fanfare. Yay. That is awesome. And thank you guys for getting that applied for, because that's going to make a difference, of course. I just wanted to make sure that I understood something that you said, which was that, you were showing the surplus of the 260,000 in there. What you were saying is we had all that money that we had put into the budget we were supposed to be spending, which we had decided that was part of our process of how to weather this, was we were just not going to spend and do those particular projects. We weren't going to buy those particular equipment. That was the savings of everything we did back in March, I think that was, or maybe April when we went through that. So we're a little bit ahead of that, which was our worst case scenario for dealing with COVID. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, that summarizes it very well. And if you can look at the bottom line of that exhibit, the transfer out and over to the right, it says delayed capital projects of 2.7 million. So that's one where it highlights how we reduce those expenditures.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we were saying it the right way for people that might be watching. Is we projected things were pretty bad, and it's a little bit better than we projected that it was going to be. That's kind of,
yes, that's a great way of putting it.
Okay, that's all I had. Is I just want to make sure that was clear for anybody that might be watching.
Maboka, did you have something also?
Yeah, just a quick question, and Scott, I'm sorry if I missed this, but I wanted to know, where do we stand in terms of our reserves at this point?
So reserves finished 2020 at 24.9 million. So a very healthy reserve. That's the audited reserve, 24.9 million. So we're still in between that 24 and $25 million range.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move back on. Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have a handful of comments. All of them, I think, are awesome. Phil, if you would, give me the first slide. Season of Small, celebrate shopping small all season long, November 28th to December 24th. I know that we've had council members comment to this in the past, as have I. Let's support our small business. Just find the way. They're getting creative on their end. The least we can do is come out and support them as well. Next slide. This is sort of a busy slide, but really in a nutshell here, the National League of Cities, we had a relationship and we were a partner in a previous project. I'm going to say that they were so impressed with us. You've got Melissa Hahn, her team, Katie Simpson, Jennifer Toney, that the National League of Cities selected us for this Cities and Health Systems Community of Practice. And we have partners that are listed down at the bottom of the slide, but we were only one of 12 communities nationwide. So this is a big deal, and credit truly goes to the staff that were involved in this, our partners, obviously, in the community. So National League of Cities, as you guys are aware, that's one of the bigger municipal type of entities here nationally. And then next, wanted to share, and I might have said this at the last council meeting, and I want to make sure that I clarify what our remaining council meetings are for the month of December. Our next council meetings are 2 weeks from today, so that's December 7th. And then we'll have a council meeting the week after that on December 14th. No committee of the whole typically for the month of December. So we have 2 council meetings that will have action items on December 7th and December 14th. Another one that made the news earlier this week, and it's huge, Ferrero. The upgrades and expansion to the plant, $75 million. I believe that we were one of 3 that they were considering landing their chocolate manufacturing production lines here at the city of Bloomington. Huge credit goes to Patrick Hoban, EDC Executive Director, and I'm going to go right back to Melissa and her team. This is one that has huge impact. So congratulations to the community. This is a big deal for us. And then another win for us. Governor Pritzker announced that there was about $22 million in Department of Natural Resources grants. And we had made application for at the Miller Park Zoo for the South American exhibit. And it's a $1 million project. And we knew that we weren't going to construct this unless we were able to fund it in a ulterior funding source. And we put in for a $750,000 grant. Well, we got it. And credit to Jay Tetzloff, his team writing the grant, but also credit goes to our lobbyist, Julie Curry. Down the home stretch, she had contacts with the governor's office, and sure enough, we're one of the few communities that actually received this grant. So $750,000, $250,000 is going to be, has already been pledged by the Miller Park Zoo Society. So 0 city funds, and we're going to build this exhibit for the community. So that's exciting. And then lastly, I gotta land on this one. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We are blessed and have many things to be thankful for. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gleason. I appreciate that and all of it, what you do. And at this point, I did want to just say, once again, congratulations on the Natural Resources Grant. That's fantastic news, and perhaps even more fantastic news related to moving forward, especially amidst COVID, where our economic development efforts have really been difficult, not just here, but throughout the United States, understandably, given that many investors are reluctant to invest or can't invest amidst the circumstances. The $75 million Ferrero situation is just fantastic because it can be helpful not just to jobs and to help putting us on the map, but even some of the physical development issues of our west side. Now that we've got Rivian that's expanding toward the west, we've got Ferrero expanding to the west. Capital investment will attract even more capital investment, and this is just fantastic. So thank you all, and thank you, staff. I did want to say that also we did have a fairly well publicized Liquor Commission meeting on Friday, and there were lots of misunderstandings about it. I'm not going to go into the details of it. If anyone has further details, want further details, they can certainly contact me. But we had perhaps a fair amount of miscommunication, given that the county health department, which has the broadest authority locally, has been hamstrung by the state attorney's opinions in the past. Hopefully that won't continue, given that there's a new county board coming and that the Sangamon County case should have put to rest any of the very extremely narrow interpretations of health department's roles which still puzzle me and many others in the past, because the health department can act regardless whether you have a liquor license. We can act when you have a liquor license. There were certainly some conflicting reports, and that was the backdrop for the 12 complaints or 12 establishments, not 12 complaints, for last Friday. Some of them were very minor, and most of them actually were comparatively minor, but we did want to make, I did want to make clear as mayor and liquor commissioner that at this point, we have not just a pandemic, but we've got an incredible spike that we have not had in the past, not just in this community, in our state, but in our nation. So we do have to move forward, and we would do that anyway. If there are complaints that people are violating and putting into public health risk our citizens, we are going to act. We have to act. We will act. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. I think it is as crystal clear as possible. My understanding in talking to our staff and many of the Bloomington Police Department, members of the department, that we had substantial compliance this weekend. This weekend was not like the previous or several weekends before. And that's important for us as we're trying to contain this until we get the vaccine in our community, because that's the most important thing that we do, is obviously to protect public health. So I do want to make that clear. If people want to, if they are aware of things and are willing to testify or have evidence of infractions, then they can certainly contact, at this point, either our city legal department or the state. I wouldn't recommend the state only because they're so far backed up, but our legal department or the health department. I'm assuming that the health department is going to move forward with aggressive enforcement now in light of the Sangamon County decision. And I'm assuming our state's attorney will not rein them in or shackle them like he has in the past. So we do have those issues, but let's be clear, we are limited. The city is limited to establishments that have liquor licenses. If you don't have a liquor license, we don't really have tools in our toolbox right now, and that's unfortunate. The health department does. I think it was clear before the Sangamon County decision last week or 2 weeks ago, but it's definitely clear now. And so we do have to move forward with this. I mean, as I said in our liquor commission meeting on Friday, nobody here wanted to be there. Not me, not our corporate counsel, not staff, not the people who had infractions of varying forms. The other thing that we, just to make clear, is if an establishment were to, let's say, have a really egregious violation and not a first offense. First offenses rarely have suspensions that are upheld. But if you have a violation, you can appeal the very next morning to the State Liquor Commission. And if you have a clean record, you can continue to operate like you've been operating until the State Liquor Commission issues a decision. And that, as we've seen, takes often, if not only a year, sometimes well over a year. And so this is liable to be a moot point if we were to go down that path. So I do want to make it clear that this is a very complicated situation, but we also, I'm so glad that our city manager has talked about the situations where we are moving forward to have a more aggressive grant program to try to get our small businesses through this extremely tough time. And obviously individual citizens who live paycheck to paycheck that are struggling, is probably putting it mildly. And that's the thing, if you're a mayor, you got to look business people and individuals who are living paycheck to paycheck in the eye and talk to them and try to explain what's going on and try to get them through. And that's not an easy thing. So I hope that we get this vaccine as quickly as possible. This has been a very, very difficult time for all of us. And I just hope that we band together and become stronger as a community because of it. That's all I have. I'm going to go around the dais. Councilmember Matthey, anything?
Yeah, a couple things, Mayor. Thank you. Questions that I've been getting recently. So one is, yes, we are still picking up leaves. There's actually an interactive map on the Public Works part of our website where you can see where they're scheduled to be in the city and what days they're going to be there. So, I've been getting that question quite a bit because we are Tree City USA, which comes with Leaf City USA. The other thing I wanted to say is that there's an awful lot of restaurants in town that have been doing everything the right way, and you can support them by buying gift certificates or just by getting curbside takeout to take the food home. And there's an awful lot of people that need our help. There's a Facebook group called Curbside Restaurants Blono that has usually what every restaurant's specials of the day are. And so if you want to support our local restaurants and the workers that work there, that's an easy way to do it, just by continuing what seems to be Bloomington's favorite hobby, which is eating.
Thank you so much.
I got one more thing, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm going to keep my running gag going that I've been sending to all of you, which is a lot of people don't know that Bloomington was actually voted the happiest city in America last month. And so now it's the happiest city in America, and we have chocolate.
Councilmember Boland, any comments? Donna, you're muted.
Yeah, tonight, I guess, is going to be the COVID night. I believe that we as the community need to practice personal and collective responsibility. We have been and should continue to be educated about COVID, continually offer reminders about the health and economic consequences of not following the CDC recommendations for limiting the spread of infectious disease. The city leaders, we as city leaders, need to model and promote the community we want to be by providing clear expectations. Blaming and shaming are counterproductive and result in conflict. Appealing to the shared humanity of physical, mental, and economic health without judgment should produce the desired results. As emotionally difficult it is, we need to accept illness and death as part of life. The vulnerable should remain in isolation. The remainder of the population should follow the CDC guidelines, washing hands, covering mouth, distancing when you're inside, quarantine when you're sick. Wearing the face covering can give a false sense of security. So hand washing before and after placing a mask on your face is very important. And cloth masks need to be washed every day. Based on the current studies, if only 80% of the population wear a mask properly, the infection rate will decrease substantially. Our goal should be 80% participation, at least. And this month, the World Health Organization reported that lockdowns should not be used necessarily as mitigations because there are unintended consequences, including mental health issues, etc. So that's all I have to say about COVID, but I would like to make another comment. I'm pretty friendly, even though people may not think so. But when I am sitting on the dais, I would greatly appreciate being addressed as Alderman Boland. If you want to call me on the phone, write me an email. You may call me Donna. I'm not offended by that. You can call me by my nickname, although I won't tell you what it is. But I do appreciate the respect of the elected office. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alderman Wambwe, any comments?
Just briefly, I just wanted to commend staff on the initiative with Ferrero. Having chocolate, in a chocolate factory in the city is absolutely awesome. And I think it is amazing that we are able to attract something of that magnitude in the city in the midst of COVID. So just, congratulations to staff, to Patrick Oven with the EDC for a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, just because I'm going around the dais with this doesn't mean usually not everybody makes a comment, so you don't have to. So at this point, Councilmember Emig, Ward 4.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to say to listen to the good Dr. Ezike, who's the head of our Illinois State Public Health. I think her advice is always really powerful. And she did note that we would have people who were missing from our Thanksgiving tables this year due to COVID, but that the fight needs to remain strong. And I encourage you to practice all of the guidelines that you've heard us say over and over again. It really does work. I think our name might be, really cool cars as well as chocolate. And I do appreciate all of the initiatives that City Manager Gleason reported tonight. And I hope everyone has a very peaceful and restful Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Painter. Councilmember Carrillo.
Yeah, I guess the one reminder, and I have a friend who reminds me of this often, but that it's like, she asks me, remember when we were all really panicked about COVID because it was a brand new thing and folks were staying home and taking all of the most care to make sure that they were not exposing themselves or other people to that risk? Well, things are much worse now. In terms of the infection rate. So all those precautions that we were taking, just because we are sick of being at home and we are sick of not being able to live life as we used to, doesn't mean that we are safer. And so we have to remain vigilant and we have to hold each other accountable to that. So I am going to be remaining watchful and hopefully staff can maybe bring more clear instructions about how folks do report it if they do see businesses and are willing and have evidence of businesses that are continuing to allow dining inside. Because, incidentally, I've walked into a couple of places and it really is very unfair to all of the businesses that have been doing all the right things at their financial detriment. So that's all I have to say on that. And then I guess today was the last day for filing for office. So I know in the spirit of Thanksgiving, just want to offer some gratitude to some of the folks that aren't going to be joining us at council next in 2021. So Mayor Renner and Alderwoman Painter and Alderwoman Bray, thanks so much for all that you have done. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Carrillo. At this point, Ward 7, Councilmember Ward.
Yeah, in the roughly 94 minutes since we had our moment of silence at the beginning of this meeting, approximately 79.7 people in the United States have died of COVID. And so I would just ask my fellow council members and mayor to just pause for a moment of silence in memory of those not quite 80 people who have died, who were all beloved of someone at some point in their life. I miss my kid and I want to be with her for Thanksgiving too. Stay home.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Crable.
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I'll just echo the sentiment said here tonight about folks remaining safe. I also wanted to say, again, thank you to our staff for all of their work and the way that you push through at difficult times to find focus and the track. And congratulations to those who filed and are willing to take on the mantle of serving in municipal government. It's a unique position And congratulations to you for stepping forward. With the remaining time that I have on council, I intend to continue to work hard on behalf of the community. And so I would say to each and every one of you and to all of our residents out there, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much. And absolutely, this is an important day. Again, this was, just so everyone knows, from the 16th of November to the 23rd of November. You could have filed for council or for mayor. At this point, we're moving forward, and I'm sure we will all do our best, and the new council and new mayor will do a great job as well. Thank you very much. At this point, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilmember Boland, second by Councilmember Matthew. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.